Hello everybody and welcome back to our Motorsport Manager career mode here with Force India using the ICE mod. Now I will apologise immediately if my voice sounds even more annoying than usual. I do have a slight cold, but hopefully it's not too bad. But we are back for episode 8 now. We are charging through this season nicely. We've had a really good season so far and hopefully we can carry that on in Munich. It looks like it is going to be raining though, so something we had to contend with last race. So maybe we've got the experience now, but we'll have a look even. When we get to it. Have a see. Wow, this has started well. We'll have a quick look at the standings as always. Just remind people where we are. If you're new to the series, let you know kind of how things have progressed so far. So we are 5th in the Constructors' Championship. Unfortunately, we actually dropped from 4th, I think, last race. I think we were 4th. Yeah, we dropped to 5th because we had quite not a poor race, I'd say, but not the best race last time out. We'll look at that in a second as well. But we've dropped to 5th place. Sergio Perez, though, in 6th place in the Drivers' Championship. Esteban Ocon down in 12th. Now, I realise I have been a bit critical of Esteban Ocon at times this season. I've said, his qualifying isn't quite as good as it could be. But he is, of course, regularly getting kind of the worst car. Most of the best parts are going to Sergio Perez. So at least he has excuses to be not quite as quick as Sergio Perez. So it's not too much of an issue. And he has driven well, I have to say. Maybe not the results have always gone for him, but he's driven well so far this season. So I'm really impressed with him. If we have a look at what happened in the last race in Vancouver, we finished 6th and 9th, which isn't bad at all. But as you can see, Massa and Stroll finishing 4th and 5th. So they got a lot of points over us. So yeah, they did jump us looking at the points there, they did jump us last race, which is unfortunate, but it was in the wet, which we've not really driven in before. Our car, not the best. I'd say the Williams is probably the better car than us. So, if we finish 5th at the end of the season, I'll be really delighted with that. I think our target was 6th. So, we'll keep battling for 4th, but it may not happen. But we'll wait and see. In terms of what's been going on since we last met, we have come up with a bit of a problem in that we've basically reached the level of development we can. We've kind of got everything we can. We could go and sort of build great parts for both drivers, but I feel like now switching focus sort of to next year, not completely, but switching focus to next year in terms of building up our headquarters a bit more. In fact, thinking of next year, did I actually set the budget? Yeah, okay, good. The budget for next year's car is high, so we are losing a bit of money per race, but it means that next year we should be able to build potentially a race-winning car. I'd like to hope so, but we do need to upgrade the headquarters as much as we can this season, so we are ready. So there are a few buildings we may build after this race once we've got a bit of income. But we'll have to decide what's most important to us. But for now, we'll get straight on with the Grand Prix in Munich, as I said. Now, again, I'm going to go for BWT as our main sponsor. If you have a look at our results, alright, qualifying in Vancouver, we only got 9th, but we finished 6th, 6th and 4th in the last few races. So 6th seems to be our regular finishing position. So 8th or above, we get the sponsor objective. I'm actually going to have a quick look at sponsors. I don't know whether any... Okay, most of the sponsorships are staying around for quite a while, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Most of them, in fact, going until next season, so that's alright. So we'll go with BWT, as I said, as our main sponsor. Now, because it's possibly going to be raining in the race, although we can't quite see it properly, I think we're going to focus a lot more on soft tyres, so we have plenty of tyres for qualifying. Actually, a very hard compound of tyres they've brought. I think I'm going to go for 1 less set of mediums and 1 extra set of softs each. I feel like that's a good allocation. I very rarely use the medium tyres anyway, to be honest, or the medium compound for a race weekend, so it's not too much of an issue there. And in terms of part fitting, I do think I have a new suspension part I need to put on the cars, although I may have already done it now. Okay, we have one here, 68% reliability, not the best, but it is a very good part actually, much better than what we've got already. So we'll switch it on for Sergio Perez's car. Esteban Ocon again, unfortunately not getting the best of the parts, but still doing a good job despite that. We do have a new engine as well, but only 54% reliability. I don't really want to risk it, to be honest. I don't feel like that's going to be very useful. So we'll leave that off the car for now until it's improved. For now though, as always, I will go off and do practice and qualifying, and I'll rejoin you for the race here in Germany. So here we are, ready for the race here in Munich. Of course, I'll go through what happened in practice and qualifying in just a moment. In the background, I'll just be setting the knowledge, but it's been a fairly positive weekend so far, and I feel like I say that about a lot of weekends with this team, that we have a lot of positives, maybe not amazing weekends, but good weekends. So, as you can see from the setups, great for Sergio Perez, and great, excellent for Esteban Ocon, so I'm happy with that. Maybe it could have been better, but having greats is still good. They're still going to get the advantage from that. And as always, from the start of the race, we'll attack and go full overtake on the engine to try and gain some ground. Now, in terms of actually, I'm debating. No, I'll keep it that, because Sergio Perez does have a knowledge thing called Super Overtake mode, which gives us another engine mode, but it uses a lot of fuel, so I don't feel like that's going to be very useful in race situations. I feel like that's more a qualifying thing. Speaking of qualifying, we'll go through that now. So, Sebastian Vettel qualifies in first, Lewis Hamilton in second, Valtteri Bottas third, Daniel Ricciardo fourth, Kimi Raikkonen fifth, and Max Verstappen sixth. Sergio Perez managed to get seventh place, followed by Lance Stroll in eighth. Marcus Ericsson with a very impressive qualifying for Sauber there in ninth place, and Nico Hülkenberg, as usual, dragging that Renault up. Now, as you can see, Esteban Ocon here in 11th place. Now, a lot of the time he does qualify outside the top 10, and usually it's quite disappointing, but honestly, he got so unlucky with this one. I think he was about 7th with 30 seconds to go in Q2 and then dropped to 11th as other cars got their best laps in. So, quite unfortunate. Pretty good performance overall this weekend. We actually finished first and second in practice, but practice was disrupted by quite a lot of rain halfway through the session, so a bit annoying we didn't get to do our full testing. Speaking of rain, it's not going to be raining at the start of the race, so we don't have that to worry about. We're going to start on, obviously, with Sergio Perez. We have to start with the tyres he qualified on, which were soft tyres. Esteban Ocon, though, we could change, but I feel like softs are still the way to go if we're expecting rain at some point. So, we'll get straight on with the race. No point just talking about it. We've already seen the grid, so let's get straight to it. So we'll be following Sergio Perez, of course, as our lead driver, and we're ready to start the race now. 5 red lights, and they're out. It's a decent start for Perez. Slow start for the 2 Red Bulls, actually. We might be able to gain a place here. Marcus Ericsson, though, right down the inside, and so is Esteban Ocon. Big squeeze on, and considering I'm recording this after, sort of straight after Baku, I'm hoping my 2 drivers don't collide with each other. And for the second race in a row, Ocon has got an amazing start, and Perez has actually dropped down the grid. Keeps happening to... Ocon's up to 4th place here, though, so this is a good start. This is exactly what he did last race out in Vancouver. He's up to 3rd. Ocon is on a charge right now. We are, of course, on full overtaking attack, so we will have to slow down at some point. But, I mean, Ericsson's up to 6th as well, which is pretty impressive. And unfortunately, he's on medium tyres, so he may end up being a bit of a nuisance for some of the cars behind, which includes Sergio Perez, of course. So we need to clear Ericsson as soon as possible. We're going to stay full attack and overtake just for a few laps now. Try and keep pace with everyone else. When other cars start to turn their cars down, we'll probably do the same. We don't want to overheat these tyres. I pressed the wrong button again. I meant to press for them to use it automatically rather than wait for me to tell them to. I've done that now, so both of them have battery available to them when they need it. Perez is ahead of Ericsson, which was absolutely crucial. So is Daniel Ricciardo. We're going to start just turning a few things down now. We'll go push and medium on fuel. Lots of cars still pushing, but I feel like we want to try and go as long in this race as we can without having to fuel save as much and with fresh tyres for as long as we can, because we don't quite know when that rain... We really do need a forecasting centre. In fact, I think I can see it at about lap 12. So if we can make these tyres last till then, that'd be brilliant, but they are very flimsy tyres, these soft tyres. I mean, tyre wear isn't too bad around this track. We are going to go conservative on tyres and try and cool them down a little bit. The tyres have over... In fact, a lot of people are on full backup, so I think we'll do the same, because we won't be losing anything to these cars if they're doing the same thing. Try and save these tyres until the rain comes, so we don't have to make a pit stop and then swap to wet, so we can just go through on the soft tyres. They are still the fastest tyre, even if we are conserving them, so hopefully this will work out. Cool these tyres down a bit, and then maybe towards the end of the stint we can push just before the rain comes. Not sure how heavy the rain's going to be. I don't think it's going to be too bad. It might just be a case of switching to intermediates, but we'll have to wait and see. My strategy when it comes to switching to wet tyres is not very useful, but what is very useful is that Marcus Ericsson is holding up most of the grid to me. As you can see the gap here, about 8 seconds between. Ericsson's 21 seconds behind, so we're about 8 seconds, I think, although my maths is terrible, ahead of Marcus Ericsson. Unfortunately, though, our drivers are now squabbling. Daniel Ricciardo got past got past Ocon, I should say, and we don't want to hold each other up too much. We want to try and build that gap between us and Marcus Ericsson. I might need to tell Ocon to let Perez through here if he keeps holding him up. We'll wait and see whether they slow each other down anymore. A couple of cars are on full attack in terms of engines, but we want to get down to a neutral fuel load, because then we have fuel to use once the pit stops come around and we can charge out the pits on a roll. I think I'm going to turn them down to conserve rather than back up. The tyres are starting to cool down a bit, but I don't want to lose too much time either to Ricciardo ahead or Ericsson behind. We have lost quite a lot of time, to be honest, and I wanted to build that gap a bit more so that when the pit stops come around we have a kind of a buffer between us and faster cars. Hülkenberg is now past Ericsson, though, unfortunately, but Verstappen, Massa, Stroll, cars we'll be battling are all stuck behind him. So Ericsson's doing the business for us at the moment. He's doing a really good job there to hold his car in 9th place. The Sauber not being competitive at all this season, so impressive performance by him. I think, though, we're going to have to turn up our attack mode, our driver style, I should say, and Ocon's going to have to let his teammate through because he's holding him up too much. So unfortunately we have to use team orders, but we can't have them battling right now. We need to try and build the gaps where we can. Not let him through yet, though. I think he's trying to find a sensible place to do it. This would be a good place to do it. Perez really should... There we go. Perez is ahead now. Hopefully now he won't hold his teammate up too much. We'll switch them back to race mode so they can battle each other a bit more. Try and push each other on a bit. So we've got a couple of laps left. In fact, that looks like it's going to be full wets. So do we go for straight from dries to wets, or do we stick it out and go for the intermediates? We're going to wait and see what cars around us are doing, because I don't want to be caught out as the only cars doing a certain strategy. We have to go conservative again. The tyres are overheating, which is really unfortunate. Not sure what the temperature is. It's 27 degrees, so it is quite a hot day, which would explain why the tyres are overheating so much. And Verstappen is now past Ericsson. In fact, Ericsson has dropped... Where is Ericsson? Oh, he's there. He is in 11th place. So Verstappen and Massa have got ahead of him, and Hulkenberg has caught us very quickly. And we are dropping off Daniel Ricciardo, so we're not looking very competitive right at this stage, but wait and see how that improves during the race. Perez has got a lot of battery, but because he's not battling anyone, I don't think he's using it. In fact, we'll switch to watching Perez because he is our lead car again. I may ask him to use his battery at some point to try and build a gap between him and Ocon, so we're not holding each other up. Verstappen's ahead of Hulkenberg as well, so Verstappen on a bit of a charge at the moment. They're still complaining about high tyre temperatures, so they're going to have to fully back up with these tyres, which is really unfortunate, because we are going to be losing some time, but overheated tyres are just going to make us slower. It's not very useful for us. But we only have a couple of laps left until this rain hits, and it is going to be a full wet condition. You can see there, after a couple of laps, it's going to go full wet, so I may try and go straight from dries to wets rather than intermediates in between. Of course, as I said, I will wait and see, as Ocon's being overtaken now, so he's going to have to go push and high on his fuel to try and keep the position as best he can, but he's going to be a bit mugged here, just trying to hold on to his tyres. In fact, we'll keep him on neutral rather than push, but just turn their engines up slightly so they can build gaps where they can down the straights. As apparently it is starting to rain now, I think maybe we can get a couple more laps on these tyres and then go for the full wets. The full wets might be a bit slow at first compared to intermediates, but it means we'll only have to make one pit stop rather than having to make a double stop to put intermediates on. In fact, speaking of double stops, I think we're going to have to tell Perez to push, because otherwise we are going to be double stacking our cars, which is going to slow us down massively. And he has still got all this battery. I think I'm going to ask him to use it down this straight again, just to build the gap to the cars behind. Stop using it now, and then we'll use it on this straight as well. And then I'll turn it back to automatic, but just build a gap where we can to Ocon, so hopefully we can pit them both on the same lap. I'm going to tell Ocon to start pushing as well, because we're not going to need his tyres for much longer. In fact, I may go full attack soon, so we can try and hold the grip while it's wet. High engine mode though still, because they've got plenty of fuel. Ocon's just dropped to neutral fuel, but not too much of an issue at this stage. We have lots of time to fuel save later on in the race. Just keeping an eye on this to see how wet it gets how quickly, and see if anyone else comes in for intermediate tyres. Because if everyone comes into intermediate tyres... In fact, Perez is saying he wants intermediate tyres, but I'd rather stick it out for the full wets, as I said, so we can miss out that pit stop. May cost us a little bit of time the first few laps, but then we'll gain essentially a pit stop on those that have to pit again for wet tyres. So possibly after this lap will be the time to do it. I'll just see how wet it gets on this lap and if anyone else pits. Kvyat is in the pits for wet tyres, so a couple of cars are coming in for wet, so I think I might do the same and try and undercut them slightly. Wet tyres don't last for very long though, that's the only cause for concern. We'll go for a balanced pit stop. Wait and see if any of the lead cars, if none of the lead cars pit, I might cancel that pit stop and just go for an extra lap. We'll go full attack and overtake though for both cars, because we're not going to need these tyres much longer. No one else has pitted in front of us, so actually I think it's slightly too early. I think it's a lap too early, so we'll go for a full lap of full attack and high fuel load, and we'll pit both drivers on the next lap. So we'll bring Perez in first, obviously. Again, balanced pit stop. We have to wait for Ocon to go past the pit so we don't accidentally pit him early. So they are possibly going to be caught behind each other, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue. We'll go for a balanced pit stop again. I feel like this works better than stopping for intermediates and then stopping for wets. Hulkenberg's in for wet tyres, so we'll watch his pace because he may jump us if we're not careful. I'm going to tell both of them to use the battery they've got on this lap. Just try and gain any advantage they can over the cars behind. So use the full battery. In fact, I'll turn it to automatic again. A couple of drivers locking up as the track gets wetter and wetter. So we're going to come in now, hopefully. There we go. Okay, got concerned where the pit lane was there. So Perez, good stop for Perez. Not held Ocon up at all. That was a beautiful pit stop by the lads. Didn't hold up each other at all. Verstappen has actually lost out a bit of time there as he actually jumped Ocon. I can't quite remember. Hamilton and Vettel, though, haven't pitted, which is quite strange. They are going to be complaining about wanting to come in for intermediates, but the wet tyres are the right choice. We're going to go neutral and medium. In fact, we'll go neutral and push, and high, sorry, because I don't want to push as hard as I can, but I also want to make sure we don't have to pit for another set of wets. We may have to anyway, but we can sort of bridge that gap when we get to it. But Perez still in 6th place, and all this race is really about is getting that sponsor objective and trying to get some points back on Williams, which we are doing at the moment. And we're actually catching Ricciardo, surprisingly. Not being very quick on these wets so far. Everyone kind of tiptoeing their way around at the moment. Hamilton and Vettel have pitted and came out ahead of everyone else, so they didn't lose any time particularly from that. Max Verstappen's locked up, which isn't what you want at the first sort of laps of this stint. But it is going to get fully wet, this track, very soon, so we're going to have to be careful about telling our drivers to push, because pushing hard on tyres on a wet track doesn't always end well for the drivers. We are catching Ricciardo, though, which I'm really surprised about. I thought Ricciardo would kind of drop us and leave us for dead, but Verstappen's catching us and we're catching Ricciardo, so we might get caught in a bit of a Red Bull sandwich, which sounds delicious, but is very unhealthy, I have to say. Red Bull sandwiches. Not my recommended picnic food. So I don't know what I'm talking about. I was going to say it's early, but it's not. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. What's going on? But we are definitely catching him. We've caught him really quickly over these last few laps. Are we going to be able to make a move, though? He does obviously have the Red Bull, which is very good aerodynamically, so therefore quite good in these conditions. So we're going to try and do our best to get 5th place, but you know, if we finish 6th or 8th, or even if we finish, 7th and 8th, that's still a decent haul of points for us. It is still going to be wet for a long time, so we want to make sure these tyres are lasting as long as they can. I'm going to turn the engines down now, save a bit of fuel till later, so that maybe if we have to do another pit stop, that might be why we're catching him actually, because we're pushing on our fuel, but try and save some fuel now so that if we have to make another pit stop, we can kind of charge out those pit stops a bit quicker. I think that's probably the best thing we can do right now. But this has turned out to be a good race. I'm always a bit hesitant at wet races. I've never done particularly well on them. It is going to start drying out, as you can see there. About lap 30, I think we definitely need a forecasting centre, I've decided. It would be really helpful for these races, being able to decide our pit stops a bit more accurately. But it is going to start to dry later on, so we definitely need to conserve these tyres until then. But temperature-wise, they're fine. 74% life left. Should be enough to get us to that dry period. We may have to switch to intermediates for a bit, as it looks like Verstappen's going for a move, but he's managed to get it, used his battery power. But as I said, 7th and 8th, not a bad result if we can hold on to that. We're still ahead of Williams. Won't be able to catch them this race, but we'll gain a little bit of an advantage back. Which, as I said at the start of the video, I'm happy finishing in 5th place in the Constructors. To be honest, it's still a decent amount of money and shows some progress, I think, for Force India. And then next season, hopefully, we can look for more consistent podiums, maybe a few race wins. That kind of be the ideal progress. And then the season after that, I don't know how long this series is going to last, but if it does last that long, by about season 3, looking to fight for the championship, I think is the most realistic format we can go for. As Massa has overtaken Hulkenberg, so he's going to be trying to chase down Ocon, who's dropped really far off Sergio Perez at the moment. Seems to be losing a lot of time, not as confident in these wet conditions perhaps, as compared to Sergio Perez. Of course, Sergio Perez has the experience, so that always helps on wet tracks. Our tyres should last, though. I'm pretty confident our tyres will last. In fact, they're actually getting a bit cold, so I'm going to tell our drivers to push just for a little bit, try and warm these tyres up a bit. Obviously, with the amount of rain and the amount of temperature drop, the tyres were always going to struggle a bit. It's 17 degrees, which for tyres is basically the Arctic, so hopefully we can warm them up a little bit without wearing them too quickly. And we're fine for fuel, so later on into the stint we can start to push a bit more. It's just whether we go from wets to intermediates to dries, or whether we go straight from wets to dries. That's the question. I feel like looking at that early radar, it looks like it is going to be a case of intermediates and then dries, but we'll wait and see when we get a bit closer and we can see the forecast a bit better. Tyres still dropping temperature, but we're wearing them out quite quickly, which I'm a bit worried about. I don't really want to end up running out of tyres towards the end of this stint. As Ocon has been caught by Massa, which is unfortunate. I'm hoping he can maybe build a bit of a gap, maybe push on a bit. I might tell him to use his battery coming off that last corner to try and get a gap, just a little bit of a gap at least, so he doesn't feel as under pressure in these situations. But of course, Sergio Perez not a concern there. He is driving brilliantly as usual. Can't quite catch Verstappen, but he's keeping him honest, which, considering they're in a much quicker car... In fact, we're still keeping Ricciardo honest as well. He's not pulling away from us as quickly as they might have expected. We are going to have to tell them to conserve tyres again, though. I know their temperature is dropping, but we've still got a couple of laps left, and we're only at 44% tyre life, so a couple of cars around us with fresher tyres as well, so going to have to try and keep an eye on that and make sure we don't, as I said, run out of tyres right at the end of our stint, because that would cost us quite badly. But we are definitely approaching the time when we could think about what tyres to go on to next. The problem with intermediates is it looks like it's only going to be a couple of laps on intermediates, so whether it's worth it or not, I think it will be for us because our tyres are wearing. They are complaining about tyre temperatures, but I can't push these tyres too hard at the moment because I don't quite know how long those intermediates will be sort of required for. We'll tell them to go neutral rather than conserve because Massa has caught Ocon. They've dropped Hulkenberg though, so Ocon still looks like he's guaranteed some points if all stays well, which is at least something to brag about. Going to tell Perez to use his battery as well. None of them really using their battery for some reason. Massa has overtaken Ocon now, and Ocon wasn't happy about that move, so it's unfortunate, but you know, considering he started outside the top 10, finishing 9th, not a bad result at all. A couple of cars looking quite poor. Ericsson's come for intermediate tyres. I think he locked up, and I guess he decided that he'd rather take the risk. In fact, a couple of cars coming in for intermediate tyres, it looks like. Bottas is in. Is he going on to intermediates? Can't quite tell. I'm going to pause it. I usually don't pause it, I do promise, but I just need to keep an eye on this situation. I think we need one more lap on these wet tyres, and then we may switch to intermediates. What's Bottas coming back out on? He's had a really poor pit stop. He's come out on intermediate, so I think we're going to do the same. We're going to tell both drivers to come out onto intermediate tyres. Go for a balanced pit stop again. All his parts, some of his parts look a bit dodgy, but I don't really have time to fix that. I did put the right tyres on. I do apologise. I have to double check that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, park condition. Don't recharge the battery. Balanced pit stop. So we'll go full attack and overtake. Same for Esteban Ocon. And we'll pit him on the same lap. Again, risking a bit of a double stack, but it's worth it if we manage to gain a position out of this to Bottas. But that really slow pit stop. We are going to come in for intermediates, because if other cars are doing it, we might not lose too much of a gap that we had. In fact, lots of cars coming into the pits now. And looking at the radar, I think it is the right choice. At the end of the race, we can go on to some soft tyres. And this is just, I think, the safer option, rather than going straight to wet tyres. The first lap, we might be a little bit slow, because we're on the wrong tyres. But hopefully the advantage... Can we get ahead of Massa? We didn't quite manage to, but we should be quick enough to make that advantage. Lots of cars locking up now as well on the wet tyre, so obviously they're not quite the right tyre at the moment. Someone's saying... it's Perez saying he wants to come in for wet tyres. But within about a lap, these will be the right tyres to be on. So I'm not too concerned if this first lap is a bit slow. Bottas is actually behind Ocon, so struggled a bit there with his pit stop. But Stroll will have to pit again. So I'm not too concerned if we lose out to him. I mean, yeah, I presume he has to pit. Some of these cars may be looking to go straight to dry tyres, but they've got really worn tyres. Ocon's locked up, not concerned. They can push these tyres to the death because I'm not going to need them for that long. And then we'll swap onto some soft tyres at the end, I think, and go just full attack, really, at the end. Try and gain as much time as we can. Raikkonen's in the pits as well. We're not going to be able to catch him. It's drivers like Massa, possibly Verstappen. Verstappen's actually ahead of Raikkonen, so they've managed to gain quite a lot of time on us so far, but we should be able to gain some of that time back. Perez is saying there's something wrong with his suspension. Ocon's saying something wrong with his brakes. I don't have time ready to come in and fix. Stroll has pitted, so Ocon's released into 8th place, with Bottas right behind him, though, unfortunately. Stroll's gone on to dry tyres. I do not think that's the right decision, though. It is still very wet on track, so it's a very, very brave decision by Williams, but I don't think it's the right one, to be honest. And we are catching Massa very quickly. 2 drivers in the pits. Raikkonen back in the pits. Is he going on to dry tyres? If he's going on to dry tyres, I think we might follow suit. Or has he got damage? He's a very long pit stop. We've gained quite a lot of position so far in this pit stop phase, and we've caught Massa because he's on the wrong tyres completely. Going to have to save some fuel now. Go down to a medium fuel load for both drivers. Massa is pitting. Hamilton's pitted as well. A couple of drivers coming out on soft tyres, so I'll maybe give it another lap on the intermediates, and then we'll come in for dry tyres. But we've gained quite a lot of time compared to other cars around us. So we'll pit at the end of this lap, and we'll go for soft tyres and just, as I said, go full attack on them till the end. I won't go for a fast pit stop. I feel like that's a bad idea. But again, we're going to pit both drivers on the same lap. soft tyres again. He's actually all used that set. Doesn't really matter, but consistency, you know, I like it to look neat. So if these are good pit stops, we have a good chance of possibly finishing quite high up. Bottas still needs to pit again for dry tyres, so we possibly won't lose a place to him. And Perez has caught Hamilton here, but we are going to pit now because it is going to dry out basically in a lap. But we're about to overtake Lewis Hamilton, then come straight into the pits, of course. They've gone onto medium tyres, interestingly, and Hamilton's locked up. So maybe the dry tyres aren't quite the right tyre yet, but they will be very soon. So I'd rather be on the tyres now. This is a good stop for Ocon. It's a decent stop, not the best stop, and we've lost a place to Massa. Hülkenberg needs to pit and Bottas needs to pit, so we should gain those places back very quickly. Both saying they want to come in for intermediate tyres. Intermediate tyres is still the best tyre to be on, but within about a lap, in fact probably at the end of this lap, dry tyres will be the tyre. So Bottas will have to pit. We may catch Hamilton, to be honest, on those medium tyres, because we don't have to worry about tyre conservation at all so far. These tyres should last till the end. A couple of drivers still need to come in. Hülkenberg and Alonso both need to pit, so Ocon should move back up past those two. So he will be in 7th place. It's unfortunate that Massa managed to jump us again, but you know, I'd rather do that than risk. You know, we had a slightly slow stop, but I'd rather risk that than a 12-second stop. Hülkenberg has caught us because he's still on the intermediate tyres, but again, he is going to have to pit very soon. I mean, they could go to the end on intermediate tyres, but it's a very risky move, and I don't think it's going to work out for them. I mean, apparently it is, because Bottas has nearly overtaken Hamilton, and Hülkenberg's about to overtake us. So maybe everyone was a bit jumpy with the intermediates, including us. I kind of followed suit with everyone else. Maybe that was a mistake. But the two cars behind us on intermediate tyres, they should have to stop, because it is going to go fully dry very soon, and they'll be on the wrong tyres completely. We can push with Perez's fuel, which I think I might do now, to try and keep Hülkenberg behind us and not lose any time behind him. Same with Alonso, of course. And Ocon's slightly catching Massa, but I think Ocon won't be able to jump him. So it's just about these cars that need to pit, or should need to pit. If they don't need to pit, I'm going to be quite unhappy, to be honest, because we've got a really good chance of finishing in 4th place, possibly, with Perez. Both of them complaining about churning through these tyres, high temperatures, but that's fine, because we're pushing them as hard as we can for a reason. Neither of these cars have pitted yet, and neither has Bottas. Perez has set his best lap so far, though, so clearly the tyres are starting to come to us, the dry tyres. Starting to be the right tyre to be on. Ocon set his personal best as well. Still has slight fuel issues, so we may have to tell him to save fuel just for a lap or two towards the end. But he has caught Massa, actually. Massa on the medium tyres, of course, so we are on the better tyres. So actually, maybe Ocon will be able to jump Massa. I'll leave his fuel as it is for now. It should be able to balance out by the end of the race, but I'm a bit concerned now that Bottas might not be pitting and staying on those intermediate tyres, because he's only got a couple of laps left. Unless he's going for sort of a mega short stint at the end, where he can just destroy the car's tyres. But that's essentially what we're doing, and we pitted a lot earlier. So we'll keep an eye on him, because it could be a net 4th place if he does pit, and Ocon could be up to 7th, as I said. Possibly higher if he overtakes Massa. In fact, he is right behind Massa. We'll jump to this battle right now, as he is right behind Massa. Massa's just there in 8th place on the medium tyres. We're on the soft tyres. I may tell him to use battery coming off the back straight, and he might be able to catch him at that point. But you can see the sudden... Sergio Perez has got issues with his suspension. He should be fine till the end of the race. But you can see the sudden drop-off in performance for the cars not on dry tyres. And I think, in fact... his brakes are doing badly as well. I think they might all be coming in at some point. Bottas has dropped behind Ricciardo. Both of them complaining about their car condition. We're going to have to go with it for now. He's in 4th place now. Not really much chance of catching Ricciardo, so I think I might turn everything down a little bit. Try and conserve the car a bit more. Ocon, though, is still right behind Massa, so I'm going to keep telling him to push. He actually got a bit of extra fuel now. We've got this back marker right in the way. Stoffel Van Dorn is blocking our way. So it may end up just being 6th place, but 4th and 6th place is pretty incredible, to be honest. Bottas obviously had a really poor pit stop again, whether he had issues with his car, because he has dropped right to the back of the grid. I don't think we're going to be able to catch Massa, though, unfortunately, because of this back marker being in the way. We'll leave it for another lap, and if he can't get past him in the next lap, we'll turn everything down, try and sort of coast the cars. In fact, I'll do it now. I don't think we're going to catch Massa, and I don't want to risk the cars. Perez has got lots of fuel, but I don't want to go high fuel load and risk overloading the engine. Stuck behind a back marker, and Carlos Sainz. Every single race we're stuck behind Carlos Sainz. It's getting a bit ridiculous, to be honest. But we'll have to stick with it. We'll have to go with it. No one really a threat behind. Massa the closest car, and he is 20 seconds behind Perez. So As long as we can get to the end of the race, it's going to be a 4th place and a 6th place. Annoyingly, Massa did manage to get some points, so we don't get that much of an advantage. I don't know why Carlos Sainz hasn't been blue flagged. Bit annoying that he hasn't been. I'm hoping he will be at some point. As we are on the last lap now. In fact, we'll go attack and overtake for the last lap. He's got plenty of tyres and fuel. Just see if he can set a fast lap at the end. Ocon the same. He's finally managed to get past Carlos Sainz. Not managed to catch Ricciardo though, unfortunately. We'll use the battery as well. Oh, we can't. Oh, he is using battery anyway, so we'll use Ocon's battery as well. So that's it. 4th place, and it is going to be hopefully a 6th place if he crosses the finish line. Here he comes now. Esteban Ocon in 6th place. That's been a really good result for us. Good team result. A lot of the time we've had positive results with one driver, not the other, but this was a real team result. Both Sauber's getting the points as well, actually, which is impressive. So we'll go through the finishing order in just a second and go through the full grid. But Sebastian Vettel has won the race, so I think he was second. Oh no, he was on pole, so he's managed to hold his position there. So here we are with the full grid. Sebastian Vettel first, Lewis Hamilton second, Daniel Ricciardo finishes 3rd, Sergio Perez 4th, Felipe Massa 5th, Esteban Ocon 6th, Alonso with an impressive 7th place, Hulkenberg with an 8th, and Pascal Wehrlein and Marcus Ericsson 9th and 10th. Actually, you know, good performance by Pascal Wehrlein because Ericsson was running sort of around that position anyway, so Wehrlein managed to jump him and all these other cars. He was helped a little bit by drivers like Verstappen and Bottas having a few problems in their pits. Raikkonen as well only got 1 lap on those intermediate tyres, so Ferrari obviously made a bit of a strategy error there. We've managed to finish 4th and 6th, so let's have a look at what that does for all the standings, drivers and team standings. Did anyone fail scrutineering? Sebastian Vettel did. Wow, okay, so Lewis Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo actually finished 1st and 2nd. Vettel dropped to 3rd. In fact, oh no, he got a drive-through. Time penalty even for Kimi Raikkonen, and Grosjean was demoted 2 places as well for a dodgy part. So a couple of teams now starting to push the envelope a little bit, which is fine by us. It gives us more of a chance to score some points. So if I look, nothing's really changed for us. Perez still 6th, Ocon's still 12th, but they have managed to gain some points on drivers around them. Lewis Hamilton now takes over as leader of the Drivers' Championship ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Sebastian Vettel languishing on 5th actually, which is a bit surprising, and we've moved up to 4th. Brilliant, so we have jumped Williams, which is what we want to do. This is kind of the battle now, us and Williams. McLaren have dropped off the pace quite dramatically in the last few races, so they're not really in it anymore. So it's between us and Williams for that 4th place. I mean, Red Bull aren't too far ahead, but I think their car is just too good for us to catch. So really, really positive weekend there. Really happy with the results and how everything went. We'll have a look at any emails, any interviews we have to do, and then we'll wrap the episode up as usual. So as I said, we're about halfway through the season now. As I said, I'd never said this before. We're about halfway through the season now, and just everything's sort of coming together nicely. I mean, we do have to improve our headquarters quite a lot, which is why it's important to get those finances in the team. So let's have a look at if anyone's improved or anyone's improved their morale. Esteban Ocon's feedback has gone up to 15, which is really important for us and important for him for getting his setup right. Everyone is absolutely delighted. Our marketability's gone up as well. Esteban Ocon improving all the time, Perez improving, and Alfonso Celis is just sort of there. I'm sure I will let him drive the car eventually. We've actually got £8.7 million, so I may build the test track, which is about, I think that's 8.5. That is quite tempting to do because that does let us improve their cornering, improves our engine, improves their overtaking skills. We're already building the wind tunnel, which improves their feedback, which is what I want most. And it's kind of a choice between these. I do want a forecasting centre at some point, but I don't feel like it's the most important thing. So it's a question of which part we feel we need to develop most, but I'll decide that later on in the series. So in terms of emails, we'll have a quick look. We do have an interview with Eurosport with Martin Haven. Let's have an interview with him. You use team orders in the race, which is something the fans are not particularly keen on. What do you have to say to them? I can either say team orders are a fact of life, they're going to have to suck it up. In this case, I felt it was justified, and I hate to use team orders, but in this case, I was left with a little choice. I think I'm going to go for the bottom one, because I don't like team orders in general, but in this particular instance, I kind of had to, just to get everything set up and sorted. So as I said, we've gone through all the emails, so that's going to wrap up this episode. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. I definitely enjoyed it. It's been a really positive weekend for us. If you are enjoying this series, do feel free to leave a like. It's not compulsory, but it is always appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.